My parents disowned me at Harvard in front of 400 people at my own sister's graduation. They erased my name from the program, photoshopped me out of family pictures displayed on screens, even removed me from their will, announced it publicly like I was already dead. But what they didn't know, I had been funding their perfect life for years, and I was about to pull every single thread. By the time I stood up to leave, their legacy, built on lies, was already crumbling. Stick with me to the end. You'll see how the truth became their worst nightmare. And if you love stories where justice finds its way, hit subscribe. I'm Jennifer Martinez. I'm 35 years old, and this is the story of how I became invisible to the people who were supposed to love me most. The auditorium at Harvard smelled like old wood and new beginnings. Rows of burgundy velvet seats stretched toward a stage draped in crimson banners. Sunlight poured through tall windows, catching dust motes that floated like tiny stars. 400 guests filled the space. Parents, siblings, grandparents, friends, all dressed in their best, clutching programs, whispering excitedly. I sat in the middle row, surrounded by strangers. My parents were 12 rows ahead. I could see the back of my father's head, his silver hair freshly cut for the occasion. My mother sat beside him, her navy dress pristine, her posture perfect. They looked like the kind of parents you'd see in a university brochure, proud, dignified, glowing with accomplishment. I should have felt proud too. My sister Rebecca was graduating summa cum laude with a degree in molecular biology. This was a big day, a milestone, the kind of moment families remember forever. But all I felt was the familiar weight, being invisible in a room full of people who knew my name. I'd been the first Martinez to get into Harvard. 12 years ago, I walked across a stage just like this one, clutching my own diploma in political science. My parents had been there then too. They'd taken pictures. They'd hugged me. My father had even cried. I remembered because it was the only time I'd ever seen him do it. That version of my family felt like a dream now, or maybe a lie I'd told myself to make the present hurt less. The program in my lap was thick, glossy, expensive. I flipped it open to the family tributes section. There, in elegant script, was Rebecca's entry. To our beloved daughter Rebecca Martinez, we are so proud of the woman you've become. Your dedication, brilliance, and grace inspire us every day. With all our love, Mom and Dad. No mention of me, no proud parents of 2 Harvard graduates, just Rebecca. As if I'd never existed. I closed the program and looked around. The woman next to me smiled politely. "Are you here for someone special?" "My sister," I said. "Oh, how wonderful." "Oh, which one?" "Rebecca Martinez." Her eyes brightened. "Oh, I know the Martinez family. Such lovely people. I didn't realize Rebecca had a sister." The words landed like a slap. Not surprising. Not even particularly painful anymore. Just expected. "Really?" I kept my voice light. "They never mentioned me?" She looked uncomfortable now, realizing she'd said something wrong but not quite sure what. I'm sure they must have. I probably just forgot." She turned away, suddenly very interested in her own program. I'd heard variations of this conversation 100 times. At family gatherings, at church events, at my father's retirement party last year. People were always surprised to learn there were 2 Martinez daughters, because in my parents' version of reality, there was only one who mattered. The lights dimmed. A hush fell over the crowd. The ceremony was starting. Dean Marshall took the podium, his voice warm and practiced. He talked about excellence, about the future, about the brilliant young minds about to enter the world. Behind him, a massive screen lit up with a slideshow, photos of graduating students with their families. I watched, waiting. There, Rebecca in her cap and gown, beaming at the camera. Our parents on either side of her, arms around her shoulders. They looked radiant. The next photo, Rebecca as a child, maybe 7 or 8, holding a science fair ribbon. Our parents crouched beside her, all 3 of them grinning. Another, Rebecca at her high school graduation. Our parents again, same pose, same pride. I wasn't in any of them, but I should have been. I had been. I remembered these photos. I'd been at that science fair. I'd been at that high school graduation. I'd been standing right next to Rebecca in some of these shots. They'd edited me out, carefully, completely, as if I were a stain they'd scrubbed away. My throat tightened. I forced myself to breathe slowly, evenly. Not here. Not now. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction of a public breakdown. The slideshow ended. My father stood. They'd asked him to give a family tribute. Of course they had. Robert Martinez was good at speeches, charismatic, eloquent, the kind of man people instinctively trusted. He climbed the stairs to the stage, waving humbly when people applauded. When he reached the microphone, he took a moment, looking out over the crowd with misty eyes. "Thank you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Thank you for being here to celebrate our daughter's incredible achievement." Our daughter. Singular. Rebecca has always been extraordinary, he continued. From the time she was a little girl, she showed a passion for learning, a curiosity about the world that never stopped. My wife and I, we sacrificed everything to give her this opportunity. We worked extra shifts, we cut corners. We did without, so she could have everything she needed. Lies. All of it. I'd paid for Rebecca's education. Every single penny of her $320,000 tuition. When she'd gotten accepted 4 years ago, my parents had called me, panic in their voices. They couldn't afford it. They'd already taken out loans for their house, their cars. They had nothing left. "You went to Harvard," my mother had said. "You understand what this means for Rebecca's future? You have a good job. You're doing well. Can't you help us? Can't you help your sister?" So I'd helped. I'd set up automatic transfers from my account to theirs. Every semester, $40,000. I'd done it quietly, not asking for recognition. Because that's what family did, right? You helped each other. But standing on that stage, my father made it sound like he'd done it all himself. "We're so proud," he said, his voice breaking. "So incredibly proud of the woman she's become." The audience applauded. My mother wiped tears from her eyes. Rebecca, sitting with the other graduates, glowed. And I sat there, a ghost in the middle row, wondering if anyone could see me at all. The ceremony continued. Names were called. Students walked across the stage. Diplomas were handed out. Flash photography created a strobe light effect that made my head hurt. Finally, they called Rebecca's name. She stood, graceful in her cap and gown, and climbed the stairs. The dean handed her diploma. She shook his hand, posed for pictures, then turned to face the crowd. She found our parents immediately. They were standing now, applauding louder than anyone else. Rebecca smiled at them, mouthing, "I love you." Then her eyes swept across the crowd and landed on me. For just a second, our gazes locked. And in that second, I saw it, a flicker of something cold and satisfied, a look that said, "I won." Then she looked away, like I was nothing. The ceremony ended. People filed out into the sunshine, laughing and taking pictures. I followed the crowd, keeping my distance from my parents. I wasn't sure what I was doing here anymore. I should have stayed home, saved myself this humiliation, but some stupid, stubborn part of me had hoped that maybe this time would be different, that maybe they'd acknowledge me, that maybe I'd finally feel like I belonged. The reception was held in a massive tent on the lawn, white fabric billowing in the breeze, tables covered in linen, champagne glasses catching sunlight, a jazz band playing softly in the corner. It was beautiful, expensive, the kind of party that screamed success. I found my name card at a table near the back, far from my family. Around me sat strangers, other guests who'd been relegated to the outer rings of the social hierarchy. I sat down and watched as my parents greeted their friends, as Rebecca posed for endless photos, as everyone celebrated this picture-perfect moment. A server came by with champagne. I took a glass just to have something to hold. "Jennifer?" I looked up. My Aunt Sarah stood beside the table, her face concerned. "Aunt Sarah? Hi." She pulled out a chair and sat down without asking. "What are you doing all the way back here?" "This is where they put me." Her jaw tightened. That's ridiculous. Your family. You should be up there with them. Should I? She didn't answer. We both knew the truth. I've tried talking to them, she said quietly. Your uncle and I both have. They don't want to hear it. It's fine. It's not fine, Jennifer. It's wrong. Yeah, well, I took a sip of champagne. It tasted expensive and bitter. Wrong doesn't seem to matter much in this family. Before Sarah could respond, the sound system crackled to life. My father's voice boomed across the tent. Could everyone please take their seats? We have a few announcements. The guests settled down. My father stood at the front with a microphone, my mother beside him, Rebecca glowing between them. The perfect family portrait. First, my father said, I want to thank everyone for being here to celebrate this incredible milestone with us. Rebecca's graduation is just the beginning of what we know will be an extraordinary journey. Applause, smiles, congratulations called out from various tables. As some of you know, he continued, my wife and I have been doing some estate planning. We wanted to make sure everything is in order, that our legacy is protected. My stomach dropped. No, he wouldn't, not here. We've finalized our will, he said, still smiling. And we wanted to share the news publicly because this family has always believed in transparency. Transparency, that was rich. Everything, our home, our savings, our investments, will go to Rebecca. She's earned it, she's proven herself, and we couldn't be more confident in her future. The words hung in the air like smoke. 400 people heard them. 400 people now knew I'd been written out of my parents' will. Publicly. Deliberately. Like a formal disowning. I stood up. My chair scraped against the floor, loud in the sudden silence. My father's eyes found mine across the tent. For a moment, something flickered in his expression. Maybe shame, maybe anger. Then he shook his head slightly, disappointed. See? He said into the microphone, gesturing toward me. This is why we made the decision we did. Some people just can't be happy for others. Some people can only think about themselves. Laughter. Not everyone, but enough. Enough to make my face burn. I walked out of the tent. Behind me, I heard my father continue his speech, his voice jovial now, like I'd been nothing but a minor interruption. Outside, the air was cooler. I walked until I found a bench near the parking lot, far enough away that I couldn't hear the music anymore. My hands were shaking, not from fear, from rage. I'd paid for all of this, the degree, the party, the champagne they were serving. I'd covered the mortgage on their house for the past 3 years, $180,000 total. I'd paid for my mother's medical bills when she'd had surgery last year, $95,000. I'd sent money for holidays, for repairs, for emergencies real and imagined, and they'd made me a ghost. My phone buzzed, a text from Rebecca. Thanks for the drama. Real classy. I stared at the message. Then another came through. Mom said you can Venmo her for your plate. It's $150. Something inside me cracked. Not broke. I'd been breaking for years. This was different. This was the moment when I stopped trying to hold the pieces together. I opened my banking app, found the recurring transfers I'd set up, transfers for Rebecca's tuition, for their mortgage, for their car payments, for their country club membership that my father loved so much. My finger hovered over the cancel button. 7 years, $595,000, and not once had they said thank you. I pressed the button. Then I opened my contacts and found Lucy Chen, a family law attorney I'd consulted last month when I'd first started having doubts about all these transfers. Lucy, I typed, I'm ready to move forward with everything we discussed. Can you file first thing Monday? Her response came fast. Absolutely. I'll draft the paperwork tonight. You're doing the right thing, Jennifer. Was I? I wasn't sure. But I was done being invisible. Done being used, done sacrificing myself for people who saw me as nothing more than a checkbook with a pulse. I looked back at the tent, at the party still going strong, at my family laughing and celebrating their perfect daughter's perfect achievement. They had no idea what was coming. I drove home in silence. My apartment was small, but mine. Truly mine. The first place I'd ever lived that wasn't connected to them in some way. I dropped my purse on the counter and poured myself a real drink, something stronger than champagne. My phone kept buzzing. Messages from relatives I barely knew, probably forwarded to me in some group chat. Aunt Linda: so proud of Rebecca. Your parents raised her right. Cousin Mark: Harvard grad. That's incredible. Uncle Tom: the Martinez family legacy continues. Not one mention of me, not one person who'd been at my graduation 12 years ago seemed to remember I'd ever existed. I opened my laptop and pulled up the spreadsheet I'd been keeping. Every transfer, every payment, every dollar I'd given them, documented with dates and amounts. $320,000 for Rebecca's tuition, $180,000 for their mortgage payments, $95,000 for medical bills, $47,000 for their credit card debt that I'd helped clear, $38,000 for their car payments, $15,000 for holiday expenses and gifts over the years, $595,000 total, more than $500,000. My entire savings account drained. My retirement fund nearly empty. My credit score damaged because I'd co-signed loans for them. And in return, they'd erased me from their lives. I pulled up my email and started searching. Found the messages from 3 years ago when they'd first asked me to help with the mortgage. Just temporarily, my mother had written. Just until your father's business picks up. His business had picked up. They'd never stopped asking for money. Found the messages about Rebecca's tuition. She's so talented, my father had written. She deserves this chance. You got your education. Won't you help her get hers? Found the messages about the credit card debt. We made some mistakes, my mother admitted. But family helps family, right? That's what families do. And I'd believed them. Every time. There was an email thread I'd never seen before. I'd found it accidentally last week when I'd logged into an old family email account we'd all shared years ago. My parents and Rebecca discussing me. She'll give us the money, Rebecca had written. She always does. Just tell her it's for family. My mother's response: I know. Sometimes I feel guilty, but she makes so much money. She doesn't have kids. What else would she spend it on? My father's reply: don't feel guilty. She owes us. We raised her. This is payback. I closed the laptop before I threw it across the room. My phone rang. My mother's name lit up the screen. I answered. Hello. Jennifer. Her voice was cold. That little stunt you pulled today was unacceptable. What stunt? Walking out like that? Making a scene. You embarrassed us in front of everyone. I almost laughed. I embarrassed you? This was Rebecca's day, her moment, and you had to make it about you. Mom, I don't want to hear it. You've always been jealous of your sister. Always. We've tried to be patient with you, tried to include you, but you make it impossible. Include me? You removed me from your will, publicly. You photoshopped me out of family photos. Silence. Then, those decisions were made for good reasons. What reasons? You're 35, Jennifer, unmarried, no children. You've chosen a selfish life. Rebecca has a future, a family she'll build, children she'll have. She needs our support. You don't. The words shouldn't have hurt. I'd heard variations of this my whole life, but somehow, hearing it stated so plainly, so matter-of-factly, felt like being punched. I funded her entire education, I said quietly, and we're grateful, but that doesn't mean you get to hold it over our heads forever. I never held it over anyone's head. You asked me to help. I helped. And now you're acting like we owe you something. You erased me from family photos, Mom. You announced to 400 people that I'm not getting anything in the will. What am I supposed to think? That maybe you need to accept your place in this family. Rebecca is the future. You're just the supporting cast, Jennifer. You always have been. She hung up. I sat there, phone in hand, staring at nothing. Supporting cast. That's what I was to them. Not a daughter, not a sister. Just someone in the background, useful when they needed money, invisible the rest of the time. I opened my banking app again. The transfers were canceled, but there was more I could do. I'd co-signed on a car loan for them 2 years ago. I'd guaranteed a personal loan my father had taken out to expand his business. I called the bank. "Hi, this is Jennifer Martinez. I need to remove myself as a guarantor on some loans." The representative was professional and efficient. Within 20 minutes, I'd started the process. It would take a few days, but I'd be free of those obligations. "Just so you're aware," the rep said, "removing yourself as guarantor means the primary account holders will need to refinance or provide additional collateral. If they can't, the loans could be called." "I understand." "Okay. Is there anything else I can help you with today?" "Actually, yes. I have a credit card that I believe someone else has been using without my permission. I'd like to report it." Another 20 minutes. Another layer of protection. When I finally hung up, it was dark outside. I'd been on the phone for hours, methodically cutting every financial tie that bound me to my family. My phone buzzed again. Rebecca this time. "What did you do? Dad's card got declined at dinner." I didn't respond. Another message. "You're being childish. This is ridiculous." Then another. "Fine, be that way. We don't need you anyway." But they did need me. That was the problem. They'd built their entire lifestyle on my bank account, and they just now realized I'd pulled the foundation out from under them. I poured another drink and opened my laptop. Lucy had already sent over the paperwork, draft complaints for financial exploitation, fraud, identity theft. I'd found out last week that they'd taken out a personal loan in my name without telling me. $85,000 currently delinquent, tanking my credit score from 780 to 520. Because of that loan, I'd been denied the mortgage for the condo I'd been trying to buy. My dream place with a view of the harbor and enough space to finally breathe. Gone. Because they'd used my identity to fund their lifestyle. I signed the forms electronically and sent them back to Lucy. Then, I did something I'd been putting off for weeks. I wrote a post for the family group chat, the one with all my aunts, uncles, cousins, the one where everyone shared good news and congratulated each other on achievements. I attached screenshots, bank transfers, email exchanges, the loan documents with my forged signature. And I wrote, "I want everyone to know the truth. For the past 7 years, I've provided $595,000 to my parents and Rebecca. I paid for her entire Harvard education. I covered their mortgage. I cleared their debts. I did this because I love them and because they told me family helps family. In return, they erased me from family photos, excluded me from their will, publicly disowned me at Rebecca's graduation today. They took out loans in my name without my permission, destroying my credit. I'm not asking for sympathy. I'm just done pretending this is normal. I'm done being invisible. And I'm done funding people who see me as nothing but an ATM. If you're wondering why I won't be at future family gatherings, this is why." I hit send before I could second-guess myself. The responses came within minutes. Aunt Sarah. "Oh, Jennifer, I'm so sorry. I knew something was wrong." Cousin Mike. "They did the same thing to my dad 20 years ago. Bled him dry, then dropped him when he couldn't give anymore. I'm sorry you had to learn this way." Uncle David. "This can't be true. Your parents wouldn't do this." Aunt Linda. "You're causing unnecessary drama. This is between you and them." But some people, more than I'd expected, sent private messages. "Thank you for sharing this. I thought I was crazy. They asked me for money last year. I said no. Now I'm glad I did. I always wondered why you were never in the photos." I wasn't alone. That was the surprising part. Other people had seen it too. They'd just never said anything. My phone rang again. My father this time. I let it go to voicemail. He called 3 more times. Then my mother. Then Rebecca. I turned my phone off and sat in the quiet. For the first time in 7 years, I felt like I could breathe. I woke up Monday morning with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. Not peace. I wasn't there yet, but clarity. Purpose. The fog of confusion and self-doubt that had been suffocating me for so long had lifted. I made coffee, opened my laptop, and started reading. Articles about family financial abuse, Reddit threads from adult children who'd been exploited by their parents, support group forums where people shared stories that sounded horrifyingly familiar. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't selfish. I was being used. The technical term was financial exploitation of adult children. It had patterns, warning signs, documented cases, parents who viewed their children as retirement plans, parents who used guilt and obligation as weapons, parents who isolated their victims, made them doubt their own perceptions, slowly drained them dry. Every article I read felt like someone had written my biography. My phone buzzed. I'd turned it back on an hour ago. 47 missed calls from my father, 23 from my mother, 16 from Rebecca, dozens of texts, voicemails piling up. I didn't listen to them. Not yet. Instead, I called Lucy Chen, my attorney. "Jennifer," she answered on the first ring. "I got your signatures. Are you sure you want to proceed with all of this?" "I'm sure." "Okay, then here's what we're going to do. We'll file the fraud report with the police today. The loan they took out in your name is identity theft, plain and simple. We'll also file a complaint with the IRS. I did some digging over the weekend. Your parents claimed you as a dependent on their taxes for the past 5 years. My stomach dropped. What? Yeah. They got about $38,000 in tax breaks by doing it, but you were filing independently, working, clearly not their dependent. That's tax fraud. Can they go to jail for that? Potentially. More likely they'll face fines and penalties. But it establishes a pattern of financial misconduct, which strengthens your civil case if we pursue restitution. What are the chances of actually getting any money back? Lucy was quiet for a moment. Honestly? Not great. They'd have to have assets to seize, and from what you've told me, they've been living beyond their means for years. But the legal action serves another purpose. It creates a paper trail, it protects you from future exploitation, and it sends a message that you're serious. What kind of timeline are we looking at? The IRS moves slowly. Could be months before we see any action there. The police report for identity theft will happen faster, within a few weeks. The civil suit, if we file one, could take a year or more. Do it. All of it. Understood. One more thing. I'd recommend you get a restraining order. Your father's called you 47 times since yesterday. That's harassment. If they show up at your home or workplace, you need legal protection. The idea of a restraining order against my own parents felt surreal, but so did everything else that had happened. Okay, I said, whatever you think is necessary. After I hung up with Lucy, I did something I'd been avoiding for years. I called Dr. Patel, a therapist whose name had been sitting in my contacts since a friend had recommended her 6 months ago. I need help, I told her receptionist. I need to understand what's been happening to me. They had an opening that afternoon. I took it. Dr. Patel's office was calm. Soft lighting, comfortable chairs, a box of tissues on every surface. She was younger than I expected, maybe 40, with kind eyes and a direct way of speaking that I appreciated immediately. "Tell me what brought you here," she said. So I did. I told her everything. The graduation, the erasure, the money, the loan, the photoshopped pictures, the public disowning. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. "Jennifer," she said finally, "what you're describing is a pattern of narcissistic abuse. Your parents have been using you as what we call a scapegoat in the family system. Rebecca is the golden child. She can do no wrong. You're the one who exists to serve, to sacrifice, to be blamed when things go wrong." "Why me?" "It's not about you. It's about them. Narcissistic parents need these roles to maintain their sense of control. The golden child reflects well on them. The scapegoat is useful, someone to exploit, someone to blame. It's not based on anything you did or didn't do. It's about what serves their needs." I felt tears building. I thought if I'd just tried harder, gave more, proved myself. You can't prove yourself to people who've already decided your role. That's the trap. The harder you try, the more they take, because in their eyes, taking from you is what you're for. So what do? You do exactly what you've started doing. You set boundaries. You protect yourself financially and legally. And you grieve the family you wish you had, so you can move forward without them. I left her office with a referral for twice-weekly sessions and a reading list on family trauma. I felt raw, exposed, like someone had peeled back my skin. But I also felt validated, Someone with credentials and training had looked at my situation and said, "This is abuse. You're not imagining it." That night, I joined an online support group called Adult Children of Narcissistic Parents. The posts were heartbreaking and familiar, people sharing stories of being erased, exploited, gaslit, discarded. One post stopped me cold. "The day I went no contact with my family was the day my life began. Don't wait as long as I did." The responses were overwhelmingly supportive. People sharing their own timelines, their own breaking points, their own moments of liberation. I wrote my own post. "I funded my sister's entire Harvard education, $320,000. My parents announced at her graduation that I'm not in their will. They photoshopped me out of family photos. They took out loans in my name, and I'm terrified that I'm overreacting." The responses came within minutes. "You're not overreacting. You're underreacting. That's financial abuse. Go no contact. Now. They will never change. Document everything. Get a lawyer. Protect yourself." I went through something similar. It took me 10 years to recover. Don't be me. Get out now. I read until my eyes burned. Then I opened a new document and started writing down everything I could remember. Every request for money. Every guilt trip. Every time they'd made me feel small or selfish or wrong for wanting boundaries. It was 3 a.m. when I finally stopped. The document was 40 pages long. The next day, my boss called me into her office. I thought I was in trouble. Maybe my parents had called, tried to cause problems for me at work. But Margaret just looked concerned. "Jennifer, are you okay? I got a strange call from someone claiming to be your father. He said you were having a mental health crisis and that I should monitor your behavior." My face burned. "That's not true. I'm fine. Better than fine, actually. I've just set some boundaries with my family and they're not handling it well." Margaret studied me for a moment. "Good for you. I told him that your personal life is none of my concern unless it affects your work, which it doesn't. If he calls again, I'll have security block the number. Thank you. And Jennifer, whatever you're dealing with, you have support here. Don't hesitate to ask if you need anything." I left her office feeling grateful and furious. My father had tried to sabotage my career, tried to paint me as unstable, unreliable, and it had backfired because Margaret saw through it. But it showed me how far they were willing to go. Lucy called that afternoon. "The police report has been filed. They'll be contacting your parents within the next 48 hours to get their side of the story about the loan. The IRS report is submitted. They'll begin their investigation within the month. And I've drafted the restraining order petition. We can file it today if you're ready." "I'm ready." "Good. Also, I should warn you. Things are about to get worse before they get better. When narcissistic people lose control, they escalate. Be prepared for them to try every manipulation tactic in the book. Love bombing, threats, playing the victim, turning other people against you. Don't engage. Document everything, but don't respond." She was right. That evening, my mother showed up at my apartment building. The doorman called up to ask if I wanted to see her. "No," I said. "Tell her I'm not available." "She says it's an emergency. She says you're sick and she's worried." "I'm not sick. I don't want to see her. If she doesn't leave, please call the police." 10 minutes later, she was gone. But she left something with the doorman, a handwritten letter. I almost threw it away, but curiosity won. I opened it. "Jennifer, I don't understand what's happening. You've changed so much. You used to be such a sweet, generous girl. Now you're cold, cruel, vindictive. What happened to you? We love you. We've always loved you, but you're tearing this family apart. Your father is devastated. Rebecca is heartbroken. Please come home. Let's talk about this like adults. We can work through this. We're family. That means something. Mom." Every word was designed to make me doubt myself. Sweet, generous girl. Translation: compliant and easy to control. Cold, cruel, vindictive. Translation: you're setting boundaries and I don't like it, tearing this family apart. Translation: you're not accepting abuse quietly anymore. I took a picture of the letter and sent it to Lucy and Dr. Patel. Then I filed it in a folder marked Evidence. The calls continued. Voicemails from extended family members I barely knew. "Jennifer, your mother is beside herself. What's going on?" I don't know what happened between you and your parents, but this seems extreme. Family is family. Your father says you've accused them of terrible things. That's not like you. Are you feeling okay? They were mobilizing people, trying to isolate me, make me look unstable, pressure me into backing down. But some of the messages were different. Aunt Sarah, I'm here if you need me. What they did to you is wrong. I should have said something sooner. Cousin Mike, my dad went through this with them in the 90s. He tried to warn me. I'm sorry I didn't warn you. If you need anything, call me. Cousin Emma, thank you for speaking up. They asked me to co-sign a loan last month. I almost did it. You saved me. I wasn't entirely alone. By the end of the week, the news had spread through the entire extended family. Some people blocked me on social media. Others reached out privately to share their own stories of being exploited or manipulated by my parents. The family was fracturing, and I was the catalyst. Part of me felt guilty, but a larger part felt free. Friday afternoon, Lucy called again. The police interviewed your parents about the loan. They claim you gave them permission to use your information. They said it was a misunderstanding, that you're overreacting because you're upset about the will. That's a lie. I know, and the police know too, because we have documentation that you only found out about the loan last week and that it's been in delinquency for months. They've opened an investigation. It's not much, but it's something. What about the IRS? Still early days, but I did get something interesting. I pulled their tax returns for the past 5 years, their public record for certain filings. They've been claiming you as a dependent while simultaneously reporting income from family contributions without declaring them as gifts. That's a mess, legally speaking. The IRS is going to have questions. How much trouble are they in? Potentially a lot. Tax fraud, identity theft, these are serious crimes. But here's the thing, Jennifer. Even if they face consequences, it won't undo what they did to you. The money's gone. The years are gone. Legal justice might happen, but emotional justice is something you'll have to create for yourself. She was right. I'd spent so much energy focusing on what they'd done to me that I hadn't thought about what came next, about who I wanted to be without them. That weekend, I did something I hadn't done in years. I looked at apartments in Seattle. I'd always wanted to live there. Mountains and water, coffee culture, tech industry opportunities. Far enough from Boston that spontaneous visits would be impossible. I scheduled a trip for the following month, job interviews at 3 firms, apartment viewings, a fresh start. For the first time since the graduation, I felt something other than anger or grief. I felt hope. Monday morning, everything exploded. The bank called my father to inform him that I'd removed myself as guarantor on his business loan. Without my backing, they were calling the loan. He had 30 days to refinance or provide additional collateral. He didn't have it. His business was leveraged to the breaking point. He called me 60 times in 2 hours. I didn't answer. Then the mortgage company contacted them. The payments I'd been making, $2,500 a month for the past 3 years, had stopped. They were now responsible for the full amount. They couldn't cover it. Foreclosure proceedings would begin in 60 days. Rebecca's medical school plans fell apart. She'd been counting on family funding, my funding, though she'd never acknowledged it, to cover the costs. Now, with no money and damaged credit from being associated with our parents' financial chaos, her options evaporated, and the IRS sent a letter, formal notice of an audit, requesting documentation for the past 6 years of tax filings. Everything I'd been holding up, their house, their lifestyle, their plans for Rebecca's future, came crashing down at once. My father showed up at my office. Security stopped him at the front desk, but I could hear him yelling from 3 floors up. I need to see my daughter. This is a family emergency. Jennifer, please, you're killing us. Security escorted him out. Margaret sent me home early, told me to take a few days off if I needed it. I went home, locked my door, and waited. That night, my phone exploded with texts from Rebecca. You're destroying everything. Everything Mom and Dad worked for. Everything I worked for. How can you be so selfish? I'm losing my spot at Johns Hopkins. My future is ruined. Are you happy now? You're a vindictive, pathetic excuse for a sister. I hope you rot in hell. I didn't respond, but I saved the texts. added them to the evidence file. More messages came from extended family. Your father is having chest pains. If something happens to him, it's on you. Your mother can't stop crying. She's heartbroken. Is this what you wanted? Family is supposed to stick together. You're destroying them. But then, other messages. Aunt Sarah. Don't listen to them. They did this to themselves. You're just refusing to fix it anymore. Cousin Mike. Block everyone who's giving you grief. They're either enablers or they're next in line to be exploited. Dr. Patel's advice from our last session echoed in my head. When toxic people can no longer control you, they'll try to control how others see you. The story they tell about you will be designed to make you look like the villain. Don't defend yourself to people who aren't interested in the truth. Just live your life. So I did. I blocked my parents' numbers, blocked Rebecca, set up email filters to automatically delete anything from them, changed my address with the doorman. Anyone asking for me by my old last name would be told I didn't live there. I went to therapy twice a week, joined a support group that met every Thursday, started sleeping through the night for the first time in months, and I watched from a distance as my family's carefully constructed facade crumbled. My father's business closed. Without the loan, without my financial backing, it couldn't survive. He had to file for bankruptcy. The house went into foreclosure. They had 90 days to move out. Rebecca's social media presence, once perfectly curated photos of Harvard life and future doctor dreams, went silent. Her friends started unfriending her as gossip spread about the family scandal. My mother's friends from church, from the country club, from her volunteer organizations, they all quietly distanced themselves. Financial impropriety was forgivable. Getting caught was not. The family group chat that had once been full of celebration and congratulations turned into a war zone, people taking sides, old grudges resurfacing, accusations flying. Aunt Sarah posted a long message defending me, detailing the financial abuse she'd witnessed over the years. Uncle David called her a liar. Cousin Mike backed her up with his own story about what my parents had done to his father. The family imploded, and I wasn't there to see it happen in real time. I only heard about it secondhand from Sarah and Mike, who kept me updated despite my request to be left out of it. You need to know, Sarah said during a phone call. Not to gloat, but to understand that you didn't cause this. They did. You just stopped enabling it. 2 months after the graduation, I flew to Seattle. I interviewed at 3 law firms. All 3 offered me positions, better titles, better pay, better work-life balance than I'd ever had in Boston. I accepted the best offer, senior associate at a firm specializing in family law and financial crimes. They loved that I had personal experience with financial exploitation, said it would make me a better advocate for clients. I found an apartment with a view of Elliott Bay, floor-to-ceiling windows, modern kitchen, a bedroom that felt like a sanctuary. It was mine, completely, entirely mine. No family obligations attached, no guilt, no strings. I signed the lease the same day. Back in Boston, I gave notice at my old firm. Margaret was supportive, even enthusiastic. Seattle will be good for you, she said. Fresh start. And honestly, Jennifer, you've been holding back here for years. I think you needed permission to put yourself first. I didn't realize it was that obvious. It wasn't obvious, but I've been where you are. Different circumstances, same pattern. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away. I packed my apartment over the course of 2 weeks. Most of my furniture was cheap, temporary. I'd never invested in my own space because I'd been too busy funding everyone else's. I donated almost everything and started fresh. The day before I left Boston, Lucy called one final time. The IRS audit is moving forward. Your parents owe about $61,000 in back taxes, penalties, and interest. They're also being investigated for the identity theft, the loan in your name. The DA's office is deciding whether to pursue criminal charges. Will they? Hard to say. White-collar crime, first offense, they might get a plea deal. But at minimum, they're going to face financial consequences that they can't ignore. And the civil suit? Still pending. But honestly, Jennifer, even if you win, collection is going to be nearly impossible. They're broke. The house is gone. The business is gone. There's nothing to take. So I'll never get the money back. Probably not, but you got something more important. You got free. She was right. I wasn't getting my money back. I wasn't getting an apology. I wasn't getting closure in any traditional sense. But I was getting my life back. And that was worth more than $500,000. I left Boston on a Tuesday morning, drove to the airport alone, no one to see me off. Boarded a plane to Seattle with 2 suitcases and a laptop. When the plane took off, I looked out the window at the city shrinking below me. Somewhere down there, my parents were packing up their house. Rebecca was figuring out a future without the funding she'd counted on. The family was fractured, maybe permanently, and I felt nothing but relief. Seattle welcomed me with rain and possibility. My new apartment was waiting. My new job started in a week. I had time to explore the city, to find my favorite coffee shop, to walk along the waterfront and breathe air that didn't taste like obligation. Dr. Patel had set me up with a new therapist in Seattle, Dr. Morrison, who specialized in family trauma and estrangement. Our first session was 3 days after I arrived. "How are you feeling?" she asked. "Free," I said. Terrified, guilty, angry, relieved, all of it at once. That's normal. Leaving a toxic family system is like withdrawing from an addiction. Your brain was wired to seek their approval, to sacrifice yourself for their needs. Breaking that pattern feels uncomfortable even when you know it's right. Will it always feel this way? No. It gets easier. The guilt fades. The anger transforms into something more like acceptance. You'll build a new life, new relationships, new definitions of what family means. It takes time, but it happens. Over the next few months, I started building that new life. I made friends at work, people who didn't know my history, who saw me as Jennifer Hayes, not Jennifer Martinez, the family scapegoat. I joined a book club, started hiking on weekends, took a pottery class just because it sounded fun. I went on dates with people who didn't come with family baggage, who respected boundaries, who thought my independence was attractive rather than threatening. I bought real furniture, hung art on the walls, filled my apartment with things I loved, not just functional pieces from IKEA. And slowly, I started to feel like a person again, not a function, not a role, just me. 6 months after the graduation, I got an email from Aunt Sarah. "Thought you should know. Your parents had to move in with Rebecca. She's renting a small place and they're all crammed in together. It's not going well. Your dad is still angry, your mom is depressed, and Rebecca blames them for ruining her medical school dreams. They're all miserable. Some of the family is starting to realize you were telling the truth. That conversation you started, it's still happening. People are setting boundaries, saying no. Your cousin Emma told your parents she wouldn't co-sign anything, and they haven't spoken to her since. She thanked me for standing by you, said it gave her courage. I hope you're doing well. You deserve every bit of happiness you found." I read the email twice, felt a flicker of something, not quite satisfaction, not quite sadness. Maybe just acknowledgement. They were facing consequences, natural consequences, the kind that happen when you build a life on exploitation and lies. I hadn't destroyed them. I'd just stopped propping them up, and without me, their whole system had collapsed. I didn't respond to Sarah's email right away. Instead, I went for a walk along the waterfront, watched the ferries cross the Sound, breathed in salt air and coffee and possibility. A year ago, I'd been drowning, invisible, desperate for approval from people who saw me as nothing but a resource to exploit. Now, I was standing in a city I loved, in a life I'd chosen, surrounded by people who valued me for who I was. The revenge I'd imagined, public confrontation, dramatic revelations, watching them suffer, hadn't happened the way I'd thought it would. Instead, it looked like this. Me, whole and healthy and free. Them, trapped in the toxicity they'd created, unable to blame me anymore because I wasn't there. I didn't destroy them. I just stopped saving them from themselves. And that, I realized, was the best revenge of all. I pulled out my phone and started writing a post for my blog, something I'd started 3 months ago, sharing my story and advice for others dealing with family financial exploitation. Walking away isn't cruelty, it's survival, and the best revenge is a life well lived without them. The post went up that night. Within hours, it had hundreds of shares, dozens of comments from people who understood, who'd been there, who needed to hear that they weren't alone. I wasn't just healing myself. I was helping others see that they could heal too. That night, I sat in my apartment, my real apartment, the one I'd chosen and paid for with money that was truly mine, and I felt something I hadn't felt in 7 years. Peace. Not happiness, not yet, but peace. The kind that comes from knowing you've done the right thing, even when it was the hardest thing. My phone buzzed. A text from my friend Nora, the one person from Boston who'd stuck by me through everything. "How's Seattle? Are you surviving the rain?" I smiled and typed back. "Thriving, actually. You should visit. I'll show you around." "Deal. I'm proud of you, Jen. You did it." "Did what?" "Chose yourself. Not everyone has that courage." I looked around my apartment, at the life I'd built from nothing, at the person I'd become when I finally stopped trying to earn love from people who'd never intended to give it. She was right. I had chosen myself, and that choice had set me free. To anyone watching who's ever felt invisible in their own family, you're not alone. You're not too sensitive. You're not ungrateful. You're allowed to choose yourself. Walking away isn't cruelty. It's survival. And the best revenge? It's a life well lived without them. Thank you for being here. If this story resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe if you want more stories about choosing yourself. I'll see you in the next one. Take care of yourselves.